Hello, this is Mindra Chen. I'm a professor of Management Information System at Smith School of Business and Economics at California State University, Channel Island. In this lecture, I'm going to talk about motivation. As you recall, we define management as an art of getting things done through the effort of other people. However, if you want to get things done through other people, you really need to motivate them and provide incentive. So there's a need to give people the incentive so they're motivated to do things. So what kind of incentive scheme or factors that would motivate people is one thing we need to study. And those incentive could be money, power, fame, etc. And eventually we need to design a performance reward system, reward people with money, power, recognitions, and potentially some additional incentive plan like bonus for the sales force or stock options in a startup company. Here's a link talking about the design of incentive system plan in a startup company. Motivation is mainly related to, in our POLC framework, it's related to the leadership's area. And as a leader, you are responsible to motivate people. And so in this course, we're going to discuss the need-based theory of motivation and also process-based theories of motivation. Then we'll touch just a little bit in terms of the performance review and appraisal system as a way to motivate people and how you would apply organizational reward in a motivational way. Officially, we're defining motivation as the intention of achieving a goal, leading to a goal-directed behavior. So you set a goal and hopefully you will motivate people to behave in a way that would achieve those goals. And we're going to talk about goal setting in the next unit. So in order to motivate people to achieve the performance that are set by the goal, we definitely need to motivate them. And also we want to make sure people have the skill set, the skill and knowledge, which is the ability to perform. And we also need to look at some factor in the environment, which means we will need to provide people with proper resource, provide people with necessary information and any kind of organizational support for them to perform. So in order for people in the organization to achieve the performance that we want them to achieve, we need to give them the motivation. We need to make sure they have the ability, and also we have that kind of supporting environment and infrastructure to actually support them to get things done. And the motivation, there's two aspects. One is intrinsic, one is extrinsic. We're going to discuss that. And also, motivation can be considered as a process that accounts for individuals' intensity, direction, and persistence of effort towards attaining a goal. Intensity means how hard they try. Direction means how much a person stays on a task. And persistent is how long that persons keep trying. So some motivational factor may encourage people to try something really hard, but they may not be able to stay on that task for too long. And some motivation factor may motivate people to try for a much longer time but they may not try that hard, but it does persist for a long time. So we're going to first talk about the need-based theory of motivation. We're going to talk about 3 need-based theories. One is Maslow's hierarchy of need, which is the most well-known one. The other is so-called ERG theory. And the third one is Herzberg's dual factor or two-factor theory. And you probably have seen something like this. This is very well-known. Maslow is a positive psychologist, Abraham Maslow, and he kind of classified our needs, humans' need, into 5 different levels from the bottom to the top. And at the very basic level, it's called physiological level, which means the breathing, food, water, sleep, etc. And then once we can survive, we want safety. Safety for ourselves, the safety for our employment, our job, and also for our family, our health, and property, etc. And the third level is called love and belonging, which means we treasure relationship. As we usually say that human beings are social animals, so we need the kind of love and belonging and friendship and relationships, etc. And the fourth level is called esteem, which means we want to feel good and confident about ourselves, our achievement, and being respected by others. And the last is called self-actualizations, which are related to morality, creativity, problem-solving skills, and etc. And to some extent, one layer kind of build on top of the other layer. The higher layer tends to be more abstract. The lower layer tends to be a little bit more concrete. And Clayton Alderfer's developed something called ERG theory. E stands for existence. And R stands for relatedness, and G stands for growth. And to some extent, we can map this kind of ERG to Maslow's 5 layers need hierarchy. Existence needs is related to physiological and safety related needs in Maslow's hierarchy. And relatedness needs is our kind of social aspect of our needs, which is love and belonging. And the growth needs related to esteem and self-actualization. So they're kind of similar. However, here in ERG theory, they kind of show that there's some dependency in terms of the lower level of needs related. Once we fulfill our existence need, then we may want to have more relatedness needs, and which will progress into the needs for the growth need. Herzberg's two-factor theory can be also very useful. Herzberg's two-factor theory is also called motivator and hygiene theory. So he classified the motivational factor into motivators and hygiene factors. Motivator tends to be more intrinsic, and hygiene factor tends to be more intrinsic, which is more explicit, more concrete, and intrinsic factor tends to be more abstract. And the motivator factors tends to give positive satisfaction, give us the positive satisfaction. For instance, this motivators include challenge work, recognition of our achievement, given responsibility, or opportunity to do something meaningful. Those are the kind of the factors called motivators. Hygiene factor could be just job security, salary, fringe benefit, and a good paid, and etc. They're more easier to measure, more concrete, easier to measure. It is referred to as extrinsic factors. In this diagram, which roughly speaking describe that when somebody is dissatisfied and unmotivated, the first thing we may want to do is to introduce the hygiene factors, pay them well, give them some job securities, and etc. And so now they're not dissatisfied, but they're not really that motivated to make great improvements. This is where when we need to introduce the motivation factor, which is achievement, recognition of their achievement, job that's interesting, meaningful, give them responsibility for certain tasks and allow them to advance to higher level tasks, etc. And hopefully we can help the employee to become not just satisfied, from dissatisfied to satisfied, but also from satisfied to highly motivated and be happier. So studies has found that intrinsic or internal motivations is very important. The intrinsic motivation is driven by an interest or enjoyment in the task itself, not the pay, not the money. It exists within individuals rather than relying on external pressure or desire for certain rewards. And the study has shown that the people would engage in the playful and curiosity-driven behaviors in the absence of those extrinsic reward. Last, let me introduce a more recent research by Teresa Amabelling, a Harvard professor. He and her colleague has written a book called Progressed Principle. Here's a wonderful talks at Google video, and that should kind of describe her research and the finding. First, she kind of identify 3 elements, which is perceptions, motivation, and emotion, as so-called the inner work life that tends to be hidden, which means they're not really showing and be able to observe by others. And here are just some of the elements for the perception, the emotional feeling, and the motivation, or what drive us to do the work in terms of what do we want to do and how to do it, when to do it, or whether to do it or not. Okay, and her research particularly find that intrinsic motivational factors tend to be tied strongly with something called creativity. Creativity could be one of the measures for individual performance. There are other performance measures like productivity, or organizational commitment, or collegiality in terms of working with our colleague in a team. And another important thing I learned from her research is that it is important that we will, when we work in an organization, particularly if you're managers, we want to give people in their everyday's life some progress in some meaningful for some meaningful work. So every day there's some small win, which means they feel they accomplished something. It doesn't have to be a big win, just a small win. little by little, that small wins will accumulate and eventually allow us to achieve something great. And I guess this is what her book's name's title came from. A lot of small win, which means we need to design a system in an organization that people would can feel they're making some progress in some meaningful work that will give them a lot of intrinsic motivation to have great performance. Okay, so we'll stop here. We finish the discussion of the need-based motivations theory. We'll continue in our next lecture on the process-oriented motivational theory.